Folks, it's rare that I start this way, but we're going to go to the live shot here of Alvin Bragg, so bear with me here. Hang on one second.
For legal services performed in 2017. This simply was not true. And it was a false statement that the defendant made month after month in 2017. April, May, June, and so on through the rest of the year. For 9 straight months, the defendant held documents in his hand containing this key lie, that he was paying Michael Cohen for legal services performed in 2017. And he personally signed checks for payments to Michael Cohen for each of these 9 months. In total, the grand jury found there were 34 documents with this critical false statement. Why did Donald Trump repeatedly make these false statements? The evidence will show that he did so to cover up crimes relating to the 2016 election. Donald Trump, executives at the publishing company American Media Incorporated, Mr. Cohen, and others agreed in 2015 to a catch and kill scheme. That is, a scheme to buy and suppress negative information to help Mr. Trump's chance of winning the election. As part of this scheme, Donald Trump and others made 3 payments to people who claimed to have negative information about Mr. Trump. To make these payments, they set up shell companies, and they made yet more false statements, including, for example, in AMI, American Media Incorporated's business records. One of the 3 people that they paid to keep quiet was a woman named Stormy Daniels. Less than 2 weeks before the presidential election, Michael Cohen wired $130,000 to Stormy Daniels' lawyer. That payment was to hide damaging information from the voting public. The participant scheme was illegal. The scheme violated New York election law, which makes it a crime to conspire to promote a candidacy by unlawful means. The $130,000 wire payment exceeded the federal campaign contribution cap, and the false statements in AMI's books violated New York law. That is why Mr. Trump made false statements about his payments to Mr. Cohen. He could not simply say that the payments were a reimbursement for Mr. Cohen's payments to Stormy Daniels. To do so, to make that true statement, would have been to admit a crime. So instead, Mr. Trump said that he was paying Mr. Cohen for fictitious legal services in 2017 to cover up actual crime committed the prior year. And in order to get Michael Cohen his money back, they planned one last false statement. In order to complete the scheme, they planned to mischaracterize the repayments to Mr. Cohen as income to the New York State tax authorities. The conduct I just described and that which was charged by the grand jury is felony criminal conduct in New York State. True and accurate business records are important everywhere, to be sure. They are all the more important in Manhattan, the financial center of the world. That is why we have a history in the Manhattan DA's office of vigorously enforcing white-collar crime. My office, including the talented prosecutors you saw at arraignment earlier today, has charged hundreds of felony falsifying business records. This charge, it can be said, is the bread and butter of our white-collar work. And fraud presents itself in all different forms here in Manhattan. We have charged falsifying business records for those who violated federal bank secrecy laws. We have charged falsifying business records for those who were seeking to cover up sex crimes. And we have brought this charge for those who committed tax violations. At its core, this case today is one with allegations like so many of our white-collar cases. Allegations that someone lied again and again to protect their interests and evade the laws to which we are all held accountable. As this office has done time and time again, we today uphold our solemn responsibility to ensure that everyone stands equal before the law. No amount of money and no amount of power changes that enduring American principle.
Wow, folks. Breaking news on the Pulse today. Welcome back. My name is Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat, and it is about 3:20 p.m. Central Texas time. And folks, this is the end of the Republic. I thought we were going to hear something about these 34 violations, right? These things that have become felony charges, but it's different documents of the same basic thing. What's interesting is the Federal Election Commission actually reviewed this previously, this payment to Stormy Daniels. If you think about hush money, which, hush money's been around for a long time, that's the whole point of an NDA. You accept the money, you sign your name, you agree not to say it. And to say that this is an election violation, the Federal Election Commission already determined it wasn't. And if it was a misdemeanor, it would be under the statute of limitations, right? So it wouldn't count. And so this district attorney is literally deciding to destroy our republic. You think about, let's say it's 50-50 in the country, whether you support Trump or not. This issue here is if somebody wants to find something, they will find something. To take something that's a misdemeanor and to elevate it to a felony is for the purpose of keeping Trump from running for president. Well, here's the crazy thing. He goes into an arraignment today and he pleads not guilty to these charges. Well, the next court appearance is in 8 months. I mean, Alvin Bragg just handed him one of the greatest gifts possible to drive fundraising, to drive all of this stuff moving forward. But the other thing I think is we ought to take this guy, Alvin Bragg, and say, hey, man, you just gave a gift, a huge contribution to the Trump campaign. I mean, think about this. This action by him has essentially been one of the greatest fundraising gifts you could possibly ever give. And see, that's the thing that's interesting is to say that the Stormy Daniels payment, the morality of that is up to you, how you manage that piece. But to say this would change the election is kind of like saying, well, we covered up the laptop and the laptop from Hunter Biden would have made a difference, right? So it's really interesting what's going on because this strikes at the very heart of the republic. And what is a republic? But it's really ultimately fairness. And here's the thing that's interesting. So I was in Austin yesterday, and I'm going back tomorrow to sit on a panel. And I was with Daniel Miller, who's the president of the Texas Nationalist Movement, and also with Kyle Biederman, who 2 sessions ago brought the Texit bill up. And I sat with them in this meeting, and we were on the panel together. And it was really interesting because the cool thing that happened was we really had an opportunity to introduce Texan Token in the context of this political movement. And this is the first time that this has happened, but it's also something that's really interesting as it relates to what's happening and why I shared that breaking news from Alvin Bragg, given his thoughts. I thought there might be something new that would come out of this, and there's nothing new. And it's kind of like legal gymnastics in order to get this done. But you know what? When you have Trump derangement syndrome, you'll do anything to try to keep him from running for president. But what you're ultimately doing is you're kind of creating a Nelson Mandela type of character here, right? Imagine this. They got to wait 8 months now. And you think about the elections and all this kind of stuff. I mean, this is only heating up. And then you've got everything in the House of Representatives where, They're drilling down into every possible fraud thing, from the Hunter Biden laptop to the pandemic to all of these different, topics, and there's just no remedy for them. And folks, as I look at Texas independence, and of course, I've been on this bandwagon for a long time, is that what is the opportunity and the option that we have when people are willing to tear down the entire form of government for their political means, right? So there's a group of people in this world that have no tether. There's a distance that is not too far for them. And, that to me is the big issue here. We talked about this many times in the past, that if a man is ruled from within, he doesn't have to be ruled from without, meaning the state. And that's really important, is that we used to have this kind of line that we would not cross when it came to politics. And that has not, that's been, breached long ago. If it wasn't the Roe v. Wade decision, it's this one, right? It's something that people are just realizing, hang on a second. And now you add on the financial stuff, right? So look at this. Babylon's burning, commercial Babylon. I mean, the whole system is burning to the ground. And the folks over in the BRICS nations, they're egging it on, right? They want to push it over the edge. Folks, we've talked about this. It's going to get worse before it gets better. But I want to really talk to you about the hope that we have, because these are really interesting times. I think a lot of people are distracted and they're like, what, Alvin Bragg, who's this guy, a district attorney from Manhattan? Yeah, Trump, whatever. This stuff is significant stuff, because it's all, in my opinion, it's all about confidence. When people lose confidence in the system, everything is a narrative, folks. Everything is a story. And that's what we're seeing with the money, right? The money is just a narrative. It's just a story that we tell each other. It's an agreement that we have. Fiat currency is by decree. Who decrees it? We decree it. We accept it and we say, this is what we're going to use as a means of exchange. The same thing is true here, right? The same thing is true here. We've got ourselves a massive crisis on our hands. And of course, the sad part about it is that there will be violence. And, you think about this, I never thought we'd be in a situation like this where we'd have such a crisis, because it's on basically all levels and from all directions. And so I want to talk to you about what the hope we have. What does it mean when something ends and something new begins? It is amazing to me. When we started this process with the Texas Nationalist Movement, and I read the book Texit, and I said, hey, I'll help you out with fundraising. And then I saw the Sens Foundation, where Richard raised $27 million in 19 days, and was inspired by this idea of, hold on, if you gave to a nonprofit organization, that's how you do token distribution. And that's an innovation of itself. And that's what we did with the Texas Nationalist Movement. We gave a free token. And of course, people have adopted that token. And, take a look at the chart. But we're just now at the bottom of things. And if you think about the politics of it, the money of it, and then an alternative, Brandon Davis, the good rags to riches himself, spoke this really, really early on in this process and said, what we have to do is we have to provide people with an alternative. And I'll tell you, imagine a place that's the 9th largest economy in the world, where people can actually go. And I've said this before, and people are like, what are you talking about, Crypto Heartbeat? Where do good people go? That's the big question. Where do good people go? Yeah, I mean, that's the big question. But let me talk to you about what this future might look like. And it's not just a future of just Texas. It's a future of, how do you change the system? We thought we used to elect people and send them to Washington. And if you went to Washington, you might have a chance to change things. But the federal Leviathan, this bureaucratic state, the fourth leg of government, if you will, has gotten so out of hand and so gangly that there's no stopping it. And so what do? You have to show people that you mean business. And of course, we want to avoid at all possible. Well, yeah, it's not violent. It's something where the people need to speak up. And the question is, at what point does it have to get before people really realize that there's something that they ought to do? And, one of the things that I think is important in all of this is to recognize that the adversary in all of this is willing to tear down the entire system to get what they want. But they often, well, pretty much all the time, overplay their hand. And so they're willing to take it down. But what does that mean? And I think it creates an incredible opportunity for Texas. And it's an incredible opportunity for the Texan token. And I sat there in that panel at the Inc. 23 conference, independent minded people. And I sat there and I talked with folks, and they were very interested in the Texan token. What's this financial thing? And it was something new for them, right? They've heard about the political stuff, and here's some guy talking about the financial system changing and talking about things like decentralized finance and what that really means and how we can decree value ourselves. And what if we literally said, no, we're going to create our own value? Well, that's what Hex is. That's what Pulse Chain is. That's what all of this stuff is. It's our version. Our made up internet money is better than the government made up internet money. A direct quote from Richard Hart. But folks, this is an absolute revolution, and it's a peaceful one. But what does it lead to? Does it mean next week everything's going to be fine? No, it's not. It means that this process, how do you go about changing the system? Well, you have to have a judo move. You got to use people's weight against them. And the greatest thing that ever could have happened at this time is the blockchain. And the ability for us to utilize a blockchain to come together in community and care for one another and accept people equally is, in a way, as an inside out grassroots movement that actually, by caring for one another, we create and unlock value. And when that value is unlocked, it then goes to fulfill its purpose. And what is this purpose? Well, the people in the Texas Nationalist Movement, and I just plead with anyone, if you're somebody that's in the Texas Nationalist Movement, you need to scream from the rooftops, because this is for you. This is something that it could be a literal catalyst for the absolute leadership and change in the world that we need, where we take people who can't keep their nose above water and we put them in a situation where they have resources, because money talks in politics. And the fact of the matter is, the people in Austin are as bad as the ones in Washington. They're wind socks, right? They just lick their finger and put it in the air. What happens when the people who care and understand and are active have the resources because they've come together in community? They have the resources to get their own candidates in. And imagine, maybe it's not this session, but maybe it's next session. And these people have the resources at the top in the next bear market. Excuse me. I got my computer crashed, by the way, just to let you know. And so I'm dealing with a new machine. I've kind of moved some things around, you may notice. But yeah, that was pretty dramatic here, coming in this morning to a completely crashed computer. So I had to get things. So you might hear a bell popping once in a while here. I thought I had it in do not disturb mode. Anyway, back to the topic. If people have resources that care about these political things, this is what tokenizing communities really means. It really means that the real utility is actually birthing a new nation. And I think that once people understand the combination of Texan token and Texit, which is the independence of Texit, you realize this is a match made in heaven, meaning it is actually what the Texit movement needs. It needs people to unlock value to be able to accomplish their goal. But the same thing is true with Ophir Crypto in the Philippines. What is that about? Well, that's potentially what happens when you take people who don't have money, poor people, right, in poverty, and they have the same opportunity and they see the same vision. Guess what? You can eradicate poverty in an area, in a community of people who agree. Now, you might say, well, that's naive and that's Pollyannish. Well, who else has got a better idea? We're just following along with what's amazing about the blockchain. And here's the thing, folks, there's not a lot of hope in this world. And the fact that we actually have something that's up and running that actually could address these massive problems. So what are the next problems we want to tackle? I mean, that's how exciting this is. Do we want to tackle poverty across the world? What about nations in Africa where people have extracted so much value over the years, corporations taking advantage of them? This is a wholesale change in the financial system. And if people can understand, it's not about adopting Bitcoin as a legal tender. Yeah, everybody wants to talk about, no. This is about the people coming together and decreeing their own value. This is essentially eliminating the Federal Reserve and ushering a new model without essentially politicians. We do this straight from the grassroots. You don't have to ask anyone's permission. That's the power of DeFi. But you probably notice my tone is different today than it's been, partly because I understand the gravity of the situation. A buddy of mine, when I first started this, was talking about Texas and helping out the Texas Nationalist Movement. He's like, dude, no one's going to go for this unless they're in the streets. In the streets. Think about that. That's absolutely what's happening. And here we are. And to think that we've prepared in advance for this. So as we continue to get really serious about identifying new communities to tokenize, We're going to be looking at these big issues. You can't just throw money at a problem. I understand that. But boy, resources for people that don't have them, that have a cause and are in community could be absolutely transformative. And I want you to see when you're a part of this vertically aligned ecosystem of Richard Hart and the Pulse Chain and When Lambo and When Pulse Chain and When Pulse X, you got to understand something. This is our shot when it comes to the new financial system and tokenizing communities and what we're doing, giving people hope and giving people the opportunity to come and build a flywheel for themselves, a golden goose, if you will, that produces value for them outside of government control. It's a revolution, my friends. And hopefully you see it. I really hope you do. I mean, that's why I'm here. That's why I tell this story all the time, is because it is powerful, super powerful. But look at what people are willing to do. We have to take responsibility for ourselves, our families, our communities, our states. We need to take responsibility. And to know that we have an option that could be restore things to popular control, number one. Number two, something that could restore sanity. The other would be morality. But that's the thing that's really cool about this is what is Texas independence but a seat at the table. It's not to say, well, the Republicans win. No, it's not that. It's about people being able to belly up to the table and say, you know what? Imagine if this system wasn't the one that the U.S. is, a lodestone around our neck. What would we do if we didn't have a fractional reserve banking system? What would it mean if we didn't have an IRS? What would the new rules be? How do we do elections? Right? How do we deal with property taxes? How do we care for those that are in need? How do we care for those that are on the outskirts and homelessness and all those kind of things? We haven't thought about these things in a long time, right? These are things we inherited. But you know what, Gen X and below, if you're younger than Crypto Heartbeat, better get ready to contribute to the solution. And I think it starts with the money. Now, I would also put one caveat into there, and that is that the human heart is corrupt, right? We have the ability to choose evil, and many do. There's something even more important than that ultimately, and that's at the core of faith in people's lives and, the family and those type of things. But when it comes to, what is the biggest catalyst for all of these things and change, especially right now, it's this alternative system, an alternative opportunity to rebuild and to reform or abolish or change these things to create a more perfect scenario for our life, liberty, and happiness. If you look at the Declaration of Independence of the United States, you look at the Declaration of Independence from Mexico when Texas became a republic. If you look at the 95 theses that were hammered up on the Wittenberg Church door, they were the reasons. And a list is in each of those documents, the reasons why we are stepping aside and we are declaring our own independence. Martin Luther, obviously, this was the Reformation. This was getting away from the Catholic Church. There's 95 reasons, one of which is you shouldn't have to pay for prayers. Things have gotten out of hand, and that's what the Reformation was. Things have gotten out of hand. That's what the American Revolution was about. Things gotten out of hand. The people weren't represented. And look what you have, Texas independence. Folks, this isn't new. It's actually a retread of something old. But they say, don't tread on me, right? So are you ready to stand up? I think you're going to have the resources to do it. And the fact that you know about DeFi, the fact that you know about the vertically aligned ecosystem of Richard Hart is incredible. But we have an alternative and we need to step up. So if you're somebody that's in the Texas nationalist movement and you don't know about Texan, you need to know about Texan. If you're somebody that's in it that knows about Texan, you better make it very clear. It's at every single meeting you could possibly do because this is a gift. I can't force people to understand this stuff. I can't force them to learn it. I can make myself available. I can turn myself inside out. I can go to meetings and I can talk on YouTube. But for those of you who get it, if we're not telling people about it, this could be the thing that actually restores and creates a future for our family. Because here's the thing. When the dollar ceases to be the world's reserve currency, which will happen in the next 5 to 10 years, and it's already beginning as they change, transactions with, the BRICS nations doing oil and gas transactions in the yuan. But we're going to see Two systems created. We're going to see these BRICS countries and everyone against the West. And folks, I'm going to tell you what, it doesn't end well because there are battles. Because the guys that have the big guns that are losing the financial power, when they lose financial power, what do? They fight. We need alternatives to these systems. And I have faith that this is a new era, that a lot of these old ideas that are really a hangover from the New Deal and really came to a head during really the baby boomers have created issues like my hippie dad. And I would say it to his face. This is something that we have to take responsibility for and fix. And what I love about the Hexagon community and what I love about crypto is this idea that it's kind of it's a resetting, it's a rebooting of the system. And when you reboot the system and you decentralize the money, you give hope to people, right? What are people talking about? When Lambo? When is a timing comment? When Lambo? And what is in that is, well, maybe Lambo soon. Right? That's what you're saying to yourself. You're imagining, you're like, I sacrificed for Pulse and Pulse X, or I got Texan, or I got this, I got that. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard of Bitcoin and it went up 1,000,000%. And oh yeah, then 13,000x for the last run of Ethereum. And I saw Hex 10,000x. Could that happen to me? When Lambo? Maybe Lambo. But insert into that Lambo segment the thing that you want. What is that thing? But now imagine the only way you can get that thing is if you help other people get their thing. You don't have to ask permission for this because your rights don't come from the state. Your rights come from a creator, and you're not an accident. And we need to work together. And I think it's partly my responsibility to speak this clearly to you, to show you that there is a path forward. And it is not this current system, because there are people who are willing to sacrifice all moral character in order to win. And this is the classic case of scarcity. I win, you lose. No. Abundance is based on all of us winning together. We have to unlock the generosity by decentralizing the money. And that's what I'm 100% committed to do. And it's beyond even what you can imagine is the greatest thing that the Pulse Chain will do. And we've got a leader in Richard Hart who's going to carry that mantle for us, because as things crumble around us, I believe the Pulse Chain, under the leadership of Richard Hart, who cares about freedom of speech and freedom of movement and all of these things, is going to have to really stand up. And we're to say, no, this isn't OFAC compliant. And yes, as they push things over to CBDCs and digital IDs and all of these things that come up, guess what's going to happen? I think ultimately what happens is this becomes a means of exchange, and that the infrastructure gets in place, and then it's the next bull run where you're like, I don't need to go to fiat. I don't need to go to fiat. We're trading in this stuff, right? It's auto converted. And folks, that's the beauty of this whole new era of digital resources. But here's the thing that I just keep hearing and ringing in the back of my head. We have to have an alternative to whatever mark that they create that requires you or limits you from buying and selling. It's here. It's coming. It's real. And we got to work together, because the only way we win in this new future is if we work together. But you know what's so cool is I'll go to Vegas or I'll go to Austin or I'll go somewhere where there's Mexicans, and I don't care what they look like, what race they are, what socioeconomic background they have, what education level they have, who they love, what they associate with, how they dress, what makeup they wear. We're high-fiving, because all men and women are created equally. And what's amazing about winning together is all of that stuff washes away. That's the real vision of the Richard Hart vertically aligned ecosystem, setting the captives free. I hope that you hear it and you see it. It is crystal clear to me. But there couldn't be a more important time, as we watched at the beginning of this, Alvin Bragg, who is basically weaponized the judicial system, taking something that the Federal Election Commission said wasn't an issue, taking something that's normally a misdemeanor and bringing up to felony charges so that he can accomplish what he ran on, which is to take down Donald Trump and keep him from being able to be president of the United States again. But I'm going to tell you this, folks. Everybody's like, well, do we get a mug shot? Do we get him in cuffs and all that stuff? Here's the thing. You put Donald Trump in jail, you've created the next Nelson Mandela. People overplay their hands. classically. These things are cycles that repeat themselves because the human heart is capable of corruption. Folks, welcome back to the Pulse. Let's get into the chat and say hello to you. This is a little different start to the day. I'll be in Austin tomorrow for a DeFi panel at the conference, the Inc. 23 conference, which is pretty cool. Rad Max is first here. Welcome, welcome. Glad to see you in the community on streams and everything. Fantastic. Let's go, Magnus. Scott Atwell. Good morning, Tex Hex Flex brethren from, oh yeah, your Queensland, all the way from Austin, Texas. Let's set the captives free. Nate Mintz here. You know, I still prefer the Nate Steaks. Sorry, buddy. Glad you're here. The fire is burning. David Lee, all the way from southwestern Indiana. He's the guy who came to my dad's funeral. This is the guy who gets it. He understands, right? He understands that it's about love, caring for one another. KD, hello, world. Francis Paul, good to see you. Godfather J6, back again. Crypto Compassion, howdy, y'all. Sam Kemp. Congratulations, Rad Max. You got the number one spot. Aaron Wisman, what's going on? Oh, Papa Bombian, what's going on, man? Whew, I need this stream right now. Well, hey, we got hope. We got hope, but we got to get active. We have to stand up and step up. Ari, what's going on? The great folks from the Philippines in the house. Hey, Matt, all hex working 67. Hey, Matt, great day to all, and get ready for Pulse Chain. How amazing is it? Step by step. I swear to you, God sees you out the corner of his eye, Richard Hart. You and your timing are impeccable. Texas Life. This is the only channel that keeps me calm. God is with us. And thank you, Crypto Heartbeat. Hey, this is the calling. And that's the thing. You can tell when something is, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And you know when people are doing what they ain't supposed to be doing. You know what I'm saying? KD. And then there's rags, right? Let's be honest about that. Now, it's good to have all of these folks together. Anders, howdy, y'all. All right, let's see here. Love and positivity. That's right. Hello to everyone. Texan Tailgate. Hey, guess what, Forrest? My computer completely crashed. Everything's crashed. I lost all my presets. I'm using my old mic. It's a sad day, but we will recover. And here we are streaming again today. 81 people here. Thanks for being here on the Pulse today. What a crazy day. To me, this is the end of the Republic, and it's only downhill from here, financially, politically, morally. And so the question is, where do good people go? And you know what I say? The Republic of Texas 2.0. MZ, what's going on? What the beep? It happened. It's happening to the USA. As if you're surprised, stay strong and calm. Love from Croatia. Yeah, the West is falling. It's rotting from within, folks. We can't even tell you the difference between a man and a woman. Liberty or death, communist, ocean breeze. One could say that nobody from the US is actually running the US. Yeah, certainly not adults. Crypto, mate. Mario, good to see you. Briz, the biz with Briz. They're just trying to smear Trump before he runs. Yeah, I mean, they're trying. But here's the thing. People think that this system is like, ironclad. It is not. It's based on the confidence of the people. What are the people? Let's make a list of the things that people don't have confidence in. Medical authorities, bing, there's number 1. 2, financial authorities, bing, political authorities, bing, right? And now basically, the very fabric of society. Once people lose confidence, because that's really what it's about. Let's not be mistaken. It's not about gold. It's not about silver. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about confidence of the people, because all of this stuff is a shared fiction. It's an agreement that we have. And the best illustration I can think of this is the fact that you can't spend Australian dollars in the United States. At the corner store here, I can't get a Coca-Cola with some plastic money, but boy, I could there. What does that tell you? The people agree that this is the thing. What is it? It's a piece of plastic, a piece of paper. That's all it is. But we have this understanding because everyone accepts it. Folks, we can stand up and through DeFi declare our own value. The question is, do we have courage and leadership to do it? Pumpzilla will prevail. Trumpzilla, I don't know. This is really interesting how this all works out. Last time we had some craziness like that, we saw Ronald Reagan appear on the scene. I'm recharged by my crypto heartbeat daily dose of optimism. That's all I can provide. That's all I got, man. Even when I'm down, these people are a disgrace to America, to everyone who sacrificed for freedoms. If they consider themselves American, then I'm ashamed to call myself one. You know what? It is so true. And I think about the greatest generation, right? My grandfather was born in 1911. And I think about those folks that fought and how they felt after they came back from war. And you think about all of that, right? Fighting back fascism, right? You think about what the Nazis represented of global takeover. And folks, it's sad when you think I grew up thinking we were the good guys. I really did. And now it's become clear that the desire isn't for truth and fairness. It's not standing on the truth. It's making money. It's corruption. And you thought you had some moral high ground until you realized, hey, mom and dad aren't so good, right? They're making deals. And but here's the cool thing. The hope I have ultimately in my faith is understanding that, hey, these things are not unseen, right? They will all see the light of day. And that's why I feel like if God's for us, who could be against us? That's the beauty of it, right? Steve says he's like, hey, he's alive and he speaks. MZ, smear or not, these will divide us even more. And I fear that this is the big plan. There's a possibility that this is part of the plan of the Great Reset, right? Push the West over the edge. And who's funding all this stuff? South Texas crypto can't stay, but has been smashed. Cash available Friday to buy more Texan. There you go. Fantastic. What's going on, Tortoise Johnny? David Lee says, please like and share and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. We're almost to 10,000 subs here on Crypto Heartbeat. 91 people here. Folks, if you're not, I would say 75 to 80% of people aren't subscribed. Just it's simple to do. And then you get the notifications too. Crypto Compassion, what's going on? The Legend of David Lee. Everyone. It's going to be like some movie written about him. The Legend of Bagger Vance. Tortoise Johnny with the love. Robert, what's going on? If Trump wins the election, what does Texas look like? Yeah, that's a great question. Texas independence isn't a Republican thing. I think there's probably more conservative, but probably more independent thinking. And the people of Texas are different, right? It's funny how it's very conservative here in Texas, especially where I'm from. Now you go into Austin and you got, some into the cities and you got some other issues. But I would say for the most part, there's an independent spirit because every kid that's in Texas learns Texas history. It's required. And there's something about being connected to that I think is really important. But the independent spirit and the fact that we've done it before and people, this is like, we treat it like a nation now. If you think about it, everybody creates products for Texas. There's always a Texas edition of everything. And if you think about the value under our feet, there's a lot there. Sorry about that, folks. I apologize for those beeps. My new computer, I've got to figure out how to shut that off. The forefathers warned us of tyranny that shall come from overreaching government. They called it 300 years ago. Yeah, and it's a cycle that keeps on returning, right? This isn't something new. Corruption and grumbling and all that stuff. I mean, all you have to do is read about the kings in Israel, right? Over and over and over again, the same thing. And there's warnings about having a child as your king. My online ghost, hello all, good to see you. Big parties. Washington warned against big parties. Hope if Texas goes into keep it, to independence. Well, and that's, I think, when you think about just the proximity of things, that's one thing that kind of helps things. But you know what? If the human heart is corrupt, and Daniel Miller said it yesterday when we were on that panel, he's like, as long as the human heart is capable of corruption, there will always be corruption. But why did the founders and the framers of the Constitution say, hey, we need checks and balances? Because they understood the human heart. They understood the human condition. And that's what happens is when people consolidate power, they lord it over you. That's what we're trying to avoid. And the beauty of DeFi is decentralizing the money, because the money is what a lot of people are going after that really, truly corrupts them, right? We're going to find out probably how much Fauci made from Pfizer and Moderna. And you're going to be blown away. He basically benefited financially from the pandemic. We're going to see all that stuff, hopefully. But there's going to be no remedy because we've got Joe Biden in the White House and we got the Senate controlled. And so you're just going to see all of this stuff and it's going to make you mad. And then there's going to be no remedy for it. And you know what I think the remedy is? Well, you know what the remedy is. Do not mess with Texas. More local taxpayer money being wasted with another witch hunt. There you go. Tortoise Johnny. Yeah. You have to clear your computer cache. There you go. The legislature information, if you want to know more about what's going on with the Texit movement, you can check it out there. Christ-centered crypto, consulting, commerce, and investment. I'll bet. But why Richard Hart? So here's the thing that's interesting. People throughout history have been used in, sometimes they're aware of it and sometimes they're not. Richard Hart, if you followed him, right? If you really spend the time to understand and read between the lines and see where he's come from and where he is today, he's the only one in crypto that's got, in my opinion, the vision for a vertically aligned ecosystem that's separate from the government CBDCs. I think everyone else is willing to compromise. Vitalik certainly is, and you look at OFAC compliance right now, and it's, you could be like, well, OFAC keeps people from giving money to the North Koreans. I get it, but at the end of the day, privacy is important, and to me, that's the beauty of this open and free and open source world that we're going to live in. I mean, there are dangers to everything. But to me, Richard Hart has the vision, and he has really what I would consider to be the intestinal fortitude to make it the distance, right? Yeah, it's the endurance because he's handled these arrows before. And so a lot of people don't think that. They're like, "Oh, I don't know if Richard Hart can handle it." No, Richard Hart is up for the calling, and you see him changing his narrative. I really think he needs to see himself more as a statesman and someone that's actually leading a cause. Because if we can see him leading a cause that actually he's creating the alternative, imagine this scenario. Imagine a future, very dystopian, where in order to get your money from the government, you have to have this wallet and you have to use CBDCs, right? They're going to choke you out to the point where you have to take money from them, and there's always strings attached, but it comes with a digital ID and it comes with a social credit score. Once you're in that system, you're locked into it. So the question is, who are those that are actually going to be able to say, no, I don't need it. I'm not taking that. No, I'm not adopting it. There's got to be an alternative to do that. And the only person I see that's out there is Richard Hart, who has a vision for it and he's seen it way earlier than most of us. And the fact of the matter is, could you take the pummeling that he's taken, from the haters? That it's a special type of person to be able to handle it. I don't think I could handle that kind of criticism. So I would challenge you. I'm a thoughtful person. I do my own research. And I don't approve of, all the antics of Richard Hart, but I see something in him that I think is really significant. He is an innovator. And in my opinion, he will go down in history as an innovator, like a Henry Ford type of character. And you're like, what? This Hex guy becomes like Henry Ford? Yeah, just watch how history treats him. You watch. If we can support this vertically aligned ecosystem, and he's built a pulse chain and we've been able to build on it, and we're able to tokenize communities and bring people into a place in which you can do all of your business without a digital ID, you can do everything without a social credit score. Well, how is that going to happen? Well, we have to cut fiat out of it. And how do you cut fiat out of it? Well, it's going to all go digital. So it's going to have to become a means of exchange in order for it to accomplish its goal. And what will that become? Well, when everything else crumbles and falls apart. It's a future. It's a ways out. But here's the thing. In the meantime, we're at the bottom of the bear market. Let's get as many communities to unlock value as possible. So when this next bull run goes and commodities go through the roof and people don't have money, we have the resources to be able to care for people in our communities and rewrite the damn rules. Because this is what sets the captives free. It's an opportunity. It's a tool that if we animate it for good, it'll be good. But if we treat it like a scarcity model and we just try to get ours and step on other people's heads, we got nothing. For those who have ears to hear, quantifiably correct, good versus evil. You hit the nail on the head with this great message. And always, Matt, get the video out to others, brothers, and share, and sisters as well. Quantifiably correct. Can't wait to see Biden in court in a few years and Obama. And that's what happens, right? You're like, all right, now the conservative DAs are going to go after all these other people. And it just becomes more of a clown show than it is. That's why, at what point do you say, people are much more willing to suffer than to change? Benny Blanca, what's up, man? Good to see you back. Awesome, awesome. Blake V, what's going on? I've understood the problems for many years, but not until Richard Hart did he actually finally see solutions and a way to better ourselves. Isn't that incredible? And it came from the most unlikely spot. But to think that this idea of Bitcoin that pushed back against this idea, and it was literally the ability to use cryptography, and have an open ledger that's decentralized it's a catalyst for freeing the captives, right? Imagine these people in the Philippines that don't have anything. They're in these 5,000 churches with Ophir crypto, and they literally have the opportunity to scrape, $100 together. What if they have an experience like the OG hexagons? What if a family? So let's just take an example. There's a grandma, and she's in a church, and she tells her grandson, and he used to play Axie Infinity, and he understands about MetaMask, and there's this thing called Ophir Crypto, and he's got some smooth love potion tokens, and he's like, hey, heard about this thing, and this guy came to the church, and he talked about endowments and giving gifts. And you know what? All right, I think this makes sense. And the grandson helps grandma figure it out, and they scrape $100 of USD, right? Not $1 million of USD, but let's say it's $100. Well, I was interviewing the great Balliet Brand early on in my YouTube channel, and he said, Matt, you know what $100 turns into $1 million? And I literally was like, no, I don't know what that's like, but that's why I got into crypto, because I hope I could learn what that's like and what every one of you are thinking the same thing. He said, that's what happened with Hex. $100 turned into $1 million. So what happens when that remote village that could scrape together this money is able to unlock it? And let's say, I'm not saying I don't know what Texan Token's going to do, and I don't know what Ophir's going to do, and I don't know what the other communities are going to do, but I know the power of this idea. And this idea of going to places where people already have trust and giving them hope, it's like rocket fuel, folks, and it's transformative. And all you need is one case study, and we're well on our way with Texan Token. Do you get it? This is a big idea. Thank you, Richard Hart. Drick's eyes popping out of his head. Good to see you back. The DA who lets murderers out of jail is going after Trump. What's essentially a parking ticket? Absolutely. And they wouldn't have done this. Jonathan Edwards had the same issues. He miscategorized these things. And yeah, this is stuff that it's funny is it's clear of a political witch hunt as possible. I thought he was going to come out with these 34 or whatever these felony charges, and I thought, oh, they're going to be other things. No, it's just another document. So they charge him for each document. Christ-centered crypto consulting, commerce, and This is good. I just don't trust the Hex ecosystem. Much research has been done showing how scam it is. Well, here's the thing. I'm not a spring chicken, and I'm going to make a case to you. The reason I got into all of this stuff is I saw Hex.com on a TV ad at 2 a.m. And, you think about vehicles and understanding things like crypto. And I saw it and I'm like, it's pretty interesting. But I wasn't introduced to Hex with Richard Hart. I was introduced on a TV ad. How silly is that? And then I started watching a guy named Hexo, the hexologist. And I didn't know Richard Hart at the time. And I was like, this guy's cool. I can relate to him. And this is fun. And there was a community around this. There was the Captain RG3, a pirate. And then I started listening to Richard. In those days, he was talking and, taking all kinds of arrows. I watched all those scam videos and people saying, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. And the more and more I watched, the more and more I realized that, hold on a second. Here's a guy who's representing the true tenets of DeFi. What is DeFi? Right? Everybody was promoting when FTX was up and to the right and Celsius was giving you 7-8% of your money and Gemini and all these people were doing so great. Yeah, Hex looked like a scam because they're like, where's your utility, man? We're making big money over here with FTX. And what you don't realize is the corrupt human heart stole your money and you gave away your keys. And here's this guy in the wilderness going, I told you guys, just hang on to your keys. Self-custody, man. Basic stuff. And you know what's funny is he's like, yeah, you just get it and you wait. Well, no, I want to be hopped up and I want to trade and I want to push buttons all the time. And here's the consistent message from Richard Hart. If you can see through some of the shenanigans, is the fact that he was telling you very practical things, which is, hey, what drives price, buying and holding? Well, how is Hex built? What does it do? It's a better Bitcoin. It's really Bitcoin with a proof of work change. You start listening to this stuff and relating to it. And it's, you know what? I'm not following the cult of personality of Richard Hart. Frankly, I think he's actually had a negative effect on the community. I don't think he's been a tremendous leader. I think he's brilliant. Would I have changed the messaging and maybe attracted more people? Yeah. But that's why I got involved. It's because I wanted to share with people that there are actually some legitimate folks who are on this bandwagon, not just because they're worshiping a man, because men are not to be worshiped. This is a tool that we can animate for good. So you take of what it does. And so I put in $600 at the beginning of Hex. My wife, every time I came home from dinner, said, "That's not real money." And I'm like, "Honey, it's like doubled. My $600 is $1,200. And then it was 25 and 35 and 65 and 79. And then it was 12,000. Then it was 15,000. My wife's like, it's not real. Every time I tell her, that's not real money. And so what I did is I said, all right, I cashed it out and I bought my daughter a car. And now she drives around a car that Hex built. My wife believes that Hex is, cryptocurrency is real money now. She saw that it actually turned into something. But here's the thing. If you want to find reasons to be hung up on this, it's fine. There's only 250,000 people in Hex and there's billions of dollars of value. That's why we're doing Texan token and Ophir crypto. There's not one ring to rule them all. But I will say this, the principles that Richard Hart has espoused, minus the shenanigans, is truth. Because if you hold your keys and you work with immutable contracts on the blockchain that are finished products, you're way more productive than you give it to some Sam Bankman-Fried character and then he goes and leverage trades it and loses all your money. So that's it, right? Because this isn't about personality. This is about, I think, way, way, way more unlocking generosity. But great question. I appreciate that. And I'll do my best to convince you, but you know what? There's a lot of, my dad always said this. He's like, that's why they make chocolate and vanilla. It's still ice cream, my friends. Quantifiably correct. I'm going to donate some of my Trump NFT money to his campaign. There you go. Pulse Demic, what's going on? Morning. And thank you for your insight, I assume. Tin Top, what's up? Hexicans, Cryptomance, PLS. Even if convicted, he'll still can be president. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's going to, they overplay their hands all the time. The pendulum swings the other way. Ryan Hungate, he is a lead dev with our team, and he is strong like bull. I think most people, given the option, would love to switch to a new way of commerce and use crypto. I thought this makes me get goosebumps. I'm so sure of it. Wow. The thought of it gives you goosebumps. Isn't that the truth? Like, what is it? It's like consolidated. It's like sticky hope. It's so good. Roof Dog, good to see you, man. Cadium, what's going on, man? We need to connect. I apologize. Besides being incredibly busy, my computer crashed today. So I'm trying to rebuild out of that. Daniel, good to see you. Almost missed it. Billy Mack, hello from Canada, new Texan holder and new to your channel. Hey, thanks, Billy Mack, for being here. Hopefully we can be the voice of reason and provide an alternative for people. But hey, folks, do your own research. These are tools that you can use. And to me, this opportunity of this next bull run, it may never exist again. And it could accomplish some really, really big things if regular people have resources. This isn't about me being king or Richard Hart being king. This is about you being king of your own castle. CP, what's going on? Good to see you. And Hex, of course. Absolutely. It's like chocolate and peanut butter, my friends. Hexy Quinn, what's up, Hexy Quinn? Thank you for being here. Crypto Cowpoke, native Texan residing in Nashville. There you go, man. They used to write on GTT. People had gone to Texas. People would write it on their door. That's when they opened up Texas. Go settle the West. Trump is in need. Well, certainly in a situation, in a pickle. It's going to be interesting. He's going to be talking tonight once he gets back to Mar-a-Lago. I have a feeling he's going to have a couple things to say. The question is there a gag order, and will he push back on it, and will he inflame tensions? We will see. I have a feeling it's going to get worse before it gets better. DGen Dougie Peach is in the house. Jamie Baker, greetings and salutations. Good to see you as well. Rich Liberation is here. Together we win. Jamie Barker. This is the result of everyone rushing to China to manufacture crap that we don't really need, all for the sake of profit. Reap what you sow. The chickens have come home to roost. I got chickens that sit on my fence, and boy, I do not like when they're facing the opposite direction because they drop gifts on our lawn. and on my fence. Rich liberation, let's set the captives free. Richard is the truth sayer. Nobody wants to hear the truth. Yeah. And you know what? I'll be honest with you, Jamie. The style in which, it's like, you did something wrong, right? You rub your nose in it. Boy, he's good at that, isn't he? Right? I think if you experience the pain of loss and then somebody just rubs your nose into it, in some respects, he's doing what they did to him back in the day. It's like all these people are like, oh, it's a scam. And oh, here it is, perfect, flawless operation. How you guys doing? Right. And that's what this whole Richard Hart was right thing is all about. Texan tailgate, 100%, Matt. That's the plan. Tigre. What's up, Tigre? Oh, liberty or death. We have to stand for what we know is right and true. We must not compromise on the beliefs of our own or on our morals and values. We must not compromise. Yes. Jesus shows us this way. Richard Hart leads the way, and so did our founders. Yeah, and we just don't put our faith in men, right? We know that people are corruptible, right? And so what do we want to do? We want to work together, but the decentralization of things keeps people from lording it over you. It keeps them from consolidating the power. That's what this is about. It's about centralization versus decentralization. The difference between President Trump and Biden, Obama, Clinton is that Trump is innocent. Well, Trump ain't like pure as the driven snow, right? Trump's made some interesting decisions, but you know what? He's a symptom of the problem too. Trump, you know what? In my opinion, we don't have statesmen anymore. Big fan of Trump policies, not really a big fan of style. It's the same thing with Richard Hart. They're actually kind of cut from similar cloth. So if one of the solutions was for Congress to disband the Fed, would they? No. Crypto Heartbeat, you're already a part of the collective face of this cause. Richard's not necessarily down for that part. He's a big picture glory getter. Yeah, but I have a feeling those things are going to change. I think when Richard realizes that he's won, but that what he has built has way more value than he even anticipated. Because I think a lot of times he's like, yeah, we're doing Pulse Chain because it's for Hex. Yeah, but then he realizes, hold on a second. This whole vision that you had for freedom of speech and freedom of movement is literally providing people with this alternative. And then, hopefully at some point he listens to the things that I say. And what does he find? It's incredible. Folks, there comes a time on every stream when something special happens, and it might be like breaking news at the beginning of this. But here's the thing, 86 people here, and I couldn't thank you more, but I have a special treat for you. And because I have a new computer, I don't have an introduction. So I'm going to do it live because he appreciates the effort. He's not only the CEO, he's the CFO, he's the CTO, he's the CMO. He's the commander of couch cushion maintenance. He's the mayor of Sassy City. In the islands, he's known as King Kamehameha. He's my ace in the hole. He's my Kid Creole. He's my Bob Dole. He's not internationally known, but he's been known to rock the microphone. Folks, the professor of potent pontification and a man who will never, ever drink a Bud Light again, rags to riches.
What's up, bro? PBR, man. PBR all the way.
PBR for you.
PBR
Dude.
coffee.
So you're going to have like suspenders and a plaid shirt and 2 tight rolled jeans with those leather boots and a record player and a beard and PBR. You know what that's called, don't you?
I don't know. What's that called?
Dude, a pansy is what that's called. Who are these guys? What do they call those? Everybody knows in the chat what those guys are called.
I know what they're called.
All right.
They're hipsters, bro. Are they hipsters
That's
or what?
You are. If you're
I'm
a
not a
PBR
hipster.
guy, no, you're not a hipster. You're drinking it out of the butt stock of an AR-15.
Well, listen, I was drinking PBR before hipsters took over, hijacked PBR.
Okay.
And yeah, so I just want to make that clear. The homeless people with iPhones, that's who we're talking about. Yeah, that's not me. All right.
That's right, man. Have you been listening to any of this craziness?
Oh, yeah, dude. I did 2-hour stream on it today.
Well, no. I watched your whole stream. Dude, I'm a fan of yours. Do you know that? No. I actually pay attention to you. And I listen. I hang on every single word that you say. No, I loved it. You had all of that. Actually, I was glad that I was able to catch streaming right when Alvin Bragg did his. That's how we started today. And that was really inspiration from you. You're leading the way, my friend.
Yeah, I think we do well to give each other ideas, so that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. So, but it seems pretty historic. I mean, this is a big deal. People tearing apart the republic. I mean, this is the most blatant I've ever seen, you know, basically the justice system being used against a political opponent. And it's not just that I don't like your politics. You're the front runner of the opposing political party. You ran your, DA's campaign to go get Trump. Now you're being successful in that, but the next, dude, think about this. It's probably the greatest gift that ever happened because the next court appearance isn't for 8 months.
Yeah.
We're gonna have the
Did you
first president running for president with an ankle bracelet.
I mean, whatever, fine. As long as as long as we don't have somebody in there with a baby bib on his front, we're good.
Yeah,
But
that's
dude,
right.
it's like there's no statesman anymore.
No,
There's
no,
no class.
no.
And unfortunately, this is just another one of those dominoes that are knocked down in our lifetime that just leads to really bad things in the future.
Yeah. No, there's no
So,
decorum anymore. And that's the thing, a big part of this is because we made politics a profession. It's interesting. I was talking to Kyle Biederman yesterday. I was on that panel with him. It was cool to meet him. I said, "Hey, what are you doing now?" He goes, "Well, I'm running my hardware store."
yeah.
I was like, "That's what people do in Texas because they only meet once every 2 years. You can't be a career politician in Texas. It's
Right.
impossible to do unless you got a trust fund, and then you got a lot of extra time on your hands."
Well, it is what it is, man. We had some good conversations. I ran some cool polls. I ran a poll that asked everybody, is this going to make you more likely or less likely to vote? Not for Trump,
Yeah.
but just to vote. 86% of respondents in my live stream said it would encourage them to vote.
Yeah.
So I think this is just a strategic miscalculation. I think they just say, all right, we're going to throw 33 counts at him and see if one sticks. Because if you do have a felony, I think that does actually keep you
Yes,
out.
it does.
But
And
misdemeanors
that's the
do
point.
not.
Yeah, that's the point. I think that, but you're creating the legend, right? He's already got kind of legendary status, but you're creating that legend. And if you think about this, that's why I use the Nelson Mandela reference. I mean, if you jail your political opponent, you create a myth, right? You create mythology. And I think that, it's a martyr. Really, you've created a martyr out of this situation. And I'm going to tell you, this isn't like a libertarian, politician. This is a mainstream politician from an opposing political party. But it just goes to show you, man, this is things are out of control. And I was sitting with Daniel Miller yesterday, and he made this point. He's like, look, there's 66% of likely voters. He goes, there's more Republicans than Democrats, but there's like 40% of people that affiliate as Democrats who support Texas independence. This isn't like, oh yeah, it's just a bunch of buck teeth, bib overall wearing country boys that got AR-15s. This is regular people in Texas of all walks of life who are like, hey, I think we could probably do this better if we went it alone. And to me, it's like the only option now.
Yeah, well, it's an option, and that's the point. It's an alternative.
Yeah. Well, and you've
So,
said that since the
yeah,
beginning.
we got to have it, man. Like, yeah, I woke up a while back and I said, why do we go through these election cycles? Nothing gets done. Inflation still robs us. Or the value of our dollar decreases. The Kenyan president says the dollar's going down. The Malaysian president talked about it today. The dollar's going down. All the BRICS countries, the dollar's going down. Like, get out. So it's like, I don't. Why would you have any confidence in our money, or why would you have any confidence in our woke political system? It's craziness.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question. I ask you this periodically. So remember the first time we ever had a conversation about the TNM and the Texan token?
Yeah.
Remember that? All right.
Yeah.
Remember what the political environment at that time was? I mean, we had kind of,
it was crazy.
lockdowns and pandemic, but we didn't have the trucker stuff. We didn't have the farmer stuff. We didn't have as much knowledge about the World Economic Forum. We didn't have all of this craziness. We didn't have, men beating women at swimming. We didn't have all of this craziness. And look at it, it just continues to mount. We didn't have the stuff that's happening in China. We didn't have the Ukraine war. Isn't it amazing the number of things? It's almost like, hold on, we were given this gift ahead of time to say, hey, we need to tokenize communities and unlock this value. Do you think it's just a coincidence, or do you think this has been part of the plan?
Yeah, I mean,
It has to be, right?
it would be coincidence if it was like one or two events, but the way that these things stacked up,
Yeah.
not only like on the global scale, but also personally for my life and your life and others around us. So I think, yeah, you can't chalk that up to coincidence.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've got some exciting times ahead. We got updates on the Pulse chain. We've been seeing Richard posting some things. Hodldog put some things up about his validator node. It looks like new UI stuff's going there. I mean, these little updates are helpful to encourage people. Any sense? Anything you see out there that I haven't touched on?
No, it's pretty straightforward. It's just like, if you remove all the objections and you remove all the problems, eventually you have no more problems to solve.
Yeah.
And it rolls out. But here's something that's interesting. Yesterday, Richard made mention of PulseX and quote unquote additional features.
Yep.
And I thought that was interesting as it lined up with V3, the business license for V3 expiring on the 1st of April.
Correct.
So maybe he's going to take some of the logic out of that code and apply it in some way to PulseX. So
yeah,
that's kind of what I took from that.
Hey, would you mind, just because, I'm not a TA guy. So T Gray says Texan making a bull flag. I don't even really know what that means, but can you pull up a chart and just show us what's going on with Texan?
Well, I'm not going to pull up the Texan chart, but what I will do is I will pull up an example of what a bull flag is.
Okay.
Let's see here.
Well, you can look at the chart, folks, index screener.
Yeah, we can pull it. I don't want to like do it on the chart. I'm not drawing any lines or anything.
No.
But I'll pull up. Let me show you what it is first.
Yeah.
And then after that, I can show you Texan.
I think there's a lot of people that are probably watching this channel that don't know what a bull flag is. So this would be helpful.
Yeah.
Kyler Kaufman. Kyler, good to see you, man. A great hexagon, and also a great actor as well. Hey, are you as excited about Masters Week as I am? I absolutely love watching the Masters, but I am kind of old.
I'm not a Masters type of guy, but
Dude,
I'll probably get there one day. Probably.
All right. Go ahead and zoom in.
Yeah. Can you guys see that?
Yeah. Just scroll up a little bit there.
All right. Yeah. So what do we have here? What's a bull flag? A bull flag is a technical pattern that provides an accurate entry to participate in a strong uptrend. Many professional traders use this continuation pattern to find the optimal place to trade with the trend. So this is kind of what it looks like. You kind of go sideways for a little bit. You see a pump, you see a correction of maybe 30 to 50%. And then it kind of pops out of this trend line and then goes from there. So I don't know if that's what's going to happen with Texan, but this is what has happened to things in the past.
Yep. Well, and there's a lot of catalysts that are kind of mounting up too. You've talked about like a rubber band being pulled back.
Yeah. So in terms of the rubber band, it's this entire time, this entire bear market, there has been like this tension. There's money waiting on the sidelines. And everybody's trying to time, the bottom, and now people are starting to get in a little bit. And, that emotional tension and that financial tension is being drawn further and further and further back. So we will see what happens there. Now, is this showing? This is not showing, is it?
No.
Interesting. All right. So I'm going to take this, copy, bing, bang, boom, paste. All right. That should show.
There you go.
Yep. There we go. Let's zoom it out here. So there we go. We have the Texan chart.
Kind of looks like the, I don't know. It looks like a gazelle. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it looks like a gazelle. If you turn it vertical, it looks like a striking cobra. And if you turn it to the left, I guess it kind of looks like a snail of some sort.
Yeah, and I think if you look at it from the side, it looks kind of like David Lee's profile. What is going on? This is so fantastic. Hey, the only one is here. The only one. The only one. So good to see you. David Lee says 60 days left in the donation phase for Ophir Crypto to GemEffect. GemEffect's a nonprofit organization that's helping 3 to 5,000 churches in the Philippines. It's an amazing story. If you're somebody like, hey, I didn't get into that, the donation phase for Texan, this is the same thing, folks, but in the Philippines. And it's really a movement of people that want to help serve people that are in, tough, a tough financial environment, people that are helping people in need, people that are providing all kinds of resources and medical care in the Philippines. This is very philanthropic versus political. What do you think about Ophir Crypto, and what encouragement would you have for people to check it out?
It's just pretty cool to know that the contract's solid, to know that the folks are solid, to know that it's immutable, and to know that it's going to be touching a part of the world that most of our community has no interaction with, and some of our community doesn't care about it. I just realized that my Texan was backwards.
What are you talking about?
You see that? Do you see my picture?
Yeah, it's backwards.
Yeah, now it's not.
Okay,
so we're good. Okay,
now you got it set, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? Well,
Yeah.
that's what happens when you use AI tools, right?
Well, I hit mirror my image on StreamYard, so that's
the only thing you also are you're doing good, dude. It's
okay.
It's close enough. The only one. So here's something I'll say also about Ophir Crypto.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I find, because all of my years in doing fundraising, is that the younger people are, the more they want to see the impact of their giving. And here's what you're going to be able to see. To me, I think some of the greatest giving you can do is direct, because there's so many organizations that have such high overhead, and they just eat a part of your donation. When you're giving to GemEffect, you're giving directly to these churches. I mean, when John and Chairman Roy go into these churches, they're actually bringing gifts of money that came from you. And so this is about as direct as you can get to address these issues of poverty and, all the things that they're doing, education, healthcare, all of that in the Philippines. And you're going to get to see that on Firestarter 88's channel. This is John, who's the founder of Ophir. And so to me, I would even appeal to you this. Hey, if you're somebody who gives to and cares about people that are struggling in remote parts of the world, but also people who, if you might care about the local church and strengthening that, there's a lot of reasons to give. But even just to give, not so that you would get token distribution, but you get that on top of it. And the more people that do participate in this, obviously, the more people that we basically prime the pump with and start with. And so I want you to understand, you're not giving money to me or Brandon. You're not giving it to a founder. You're giving it direct to a nonprofit organization that goes directly to the people in the Philippines. That's a very different model. And that's the model that we will continue to utilize, because it is the way in which we not only create value, but help build a community of people and give them hope. And so that's my best case right now for Ophir Crypto. So check it out. 60 days left in that donation phase.
Yep. Well said.
Awesome.
Jack Houston has a question there at the bottom.
All right, Jack Houston. Oh, let me see who's here. Hey, look who's here. I like snails, cobras.
Tex-X, what's up?
No fear. I love it, dude. It's a gazelle flag. Randolph Schreier. Maybe we let it cool down for a little bit more. Jack Houston. Hey guys, off topic, but have either of you heard anything about the highest stakes coming out? I have some insider info. I thought the last day they shared that they were close to a deal, and it seems that they went dark. Do you have any news?
Yeah, not news that I'm really allowed to share, but maybe this will show you. That's all I got to say. Yeah.
What is this?
Big old smile.
Okay.
Indicating positive emotion.
Yeah, there's good things happening there. I think that's all you can say. And really, the people that you would want to reach out to are the producers of that. But we're not at liberty to share anything. Not like we have like some super secret information, but there's some good progress happening there. And I think that it's a what did one guy say? He said, you know what the highest of stakes is? It's what was that? The Tiger King of crypto. That was the way he described it. He's like, it's like the Tiger King of crypto. And I'm like, There would be nothing better than the Tiger King of crypto, Richard Hart.
Yeah,
I thought
and you
it's
got
perfect.
think about this too, folks. Like as a business plan, you want to release something when there's demand. Do you think there's going to be more demand for that in a bear market or a bullish market? So that probably has something to do with it too.
Yeah, there you go. Randolph's right. Put Texarkana in El Paso. Flip it around. Optimal timeline. Great work, gents. Katie in the house. So where do we go from here? I mean, I think what we're looking for is to see Trump give his speech tonight. The question is there a gag order? Is he
No
allowed
gag
to
order.
talk about it? There's no gag order?
Just heard about it. Yeah, but the
Okay.
judge said don't do stupid things.
Oh
Don't
yeah,
do.
like that's gonna
No,
like that's gonna he's gonna yeah, I think he's gonna get people excited. The question is, do you think there'll be violence tonight after dark?
no, no.
You don't?
I don't think so. I don't think
You
so.
know what I
If
think is gonna happen? I think a
you
lot
think
of
it's going to be
people.
the other side,
Yes. Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Do you remember way back when we had all those riots in the summer and
yeah.
there just happened to be loads of bricks in cities? Like
Uh-huh.
people dropped off loads of bricks.
Yeah,
Oh, it just
yeah.
happened. Hey, here's a load of bricks.
Pallets,
Pallets of bricks. Yeah, so they could
like
throw it
just
at
around the
people.
corner and down the alleys. Just great.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so I was in sales at the time, and like at the very beginning of all that, and I remember I was in Charlottesville, Virginia,
Oh, were you? Okay.
which is kind of like the epicenter of all the craziness. Now, this was like this little bit after all of that, but I'm working with this college student, and this college student uh comes into the store, smells like liquor, smells like alcohol, and says, "Hey man, I need a new phone. I broke my phone." I say, "Oh, how'd you break your phone?" He said, "Oh well, I was out protesting all night." And I'm like, "Protesting?" And then he says, "Yeah, he's like, all my friends and I, we got together," and he's like, "We smoked a little bit, we got real drunk, we just went out and threw stuff around, and we've been doing it every night. It's awesome." So that just goes to show you that it was fun for them.
Yeah.
It's like, let's go get liquored up, let's go get high as a kite, and let's go break stuff and get away with it. And let's
Yep.
do it 3, 4, 5 nights in a row and ruin a city. So what is this? What are we protesting? So it's anarchy, man.
It is.
Anarchy.
It really is. Liberty to justice. What we see today in our country is what you see in Russia. I know who the Democrats are, but I'm sickened for every true freedom loving America should be. Yeah. That's the thing. I don't really draw it just on political lines. Certainly I think that there's extremes on both ends, but I think there are people who are productive. And Rags, don't you think there are people who are productive people on both sides of the aisle? They go to work, they do their stuff, they take care of their family, they watch out for their kids, they try to do the right thing. And that's the people that are suffering in this situation, is that we're tearing apart the very fabric to go after the extremes. And it's like, you know, we have enough trouble here. We're sending all of our money overseas, and then we've got literally, our financial system crumbling. I mean, it's going to get bad.
Yeah, it's already bad, and
Yeah.
we just don't realize how bad it's gotten because we've been living in it. And I remember when it wasn't this bad, and I
Yeah.
try to remember back to that to have some type of grounding in what reality should be.
Yeah.
So it's bad, man. It's bad.
Well, I want to thank you. You were the first one to say, "Hey, we have to provide an alternative." And I never
Mhm.
thought. I mean, I hoped for it, honestly. I hoped that there would be an alternative and that we could actually provide it. But the more and more I see it, and I saw a little twinkle in Daniel Miller's eye, and it was really cool to see him say, "Hey, this people are noticing the Texan token, and they're noticing, this could be a game changer for us." And I really appreciated that. So, folks, stay the course. 1,000 points light, be the ball. Rich Liberation says Texan. 2023 is the year of Pulse Chain, Pulse X, Hex, the highest of stakes wall. The future is bright and the future is now. And we'll throw in Texan in there too. What's up, Chris? Side effects. Pesa Dude, it's not a question of right or left. It's a question of good versus evil, a question of tyranny or freedom, right versus wrong. You're absolutely right. Brandon, any last thoughts before we sign off?
Guys, do not be afraid to talk about these things publicly.
Yep.
Don't be afraid of your aunt or uncle because they're, massively politically compromised and you're afraid of the conversation. Go forward. goes forward and hit them with truth, because you know it's the right thing to do. Stop waiting in the shadows. The time is to start talking about it now.
Yep.
The time was yesterday, quite frankly. So yeah.
And if you don't want to take on uncles and aunts, if you're somebody that's in the T&M, right, you care about Texas independence, and I'm not speaking to a number of you that are in the chat. If you don't realize what Brandon and I and our team has put before you, you're going to be sad you didn't. So I just encourage you, do your own research, tell folks about it, because this is really a gift that we give to you, and it's really up to your communities to take advantage of it. And I see it happening more and more, but this is a real opportunity. Folks, thanks for joining the Pulse today. My name is Matt. That's Brandon from Rags to Riches. And do not mess with Texas. Take care, everybody.